What's up, you guys? I'm Rachel Demita, and welcome to the Courtside Club. Here we are again with more WNBA CBA updates. Who's ready for some more drama? Raise your hand. Anyway, I did not think that I would be filming another WNBA CBA update video for you guys, and it's not my favorite topic to cover, but I do want to keep you guys informed, and there was some new information that came out just today from Annie Costable. Shout out to Annie Costable. She has been on top of all of this, and I feel like she has been breaking some major news when it comes to the WNBA's new CBA that they're still trying to work out. Now, in yesterday's
You have to hear this because the WNBA just made a move so shockingly short-sighted, it's almost unbelievable. Right in the middle of what should be groundbreaking contract negotiations, while they're parading around massive, eye-catching salary figures, the league suddenly decides to yank away a benefit that has been essential to players for years: team-provided housing. This decision hit like a bomb, triggering immediate and widespread backlash, leaving everyone from the players on the floor to the fans in the seats wondering who on earth is making these decisions.
Extended once again, and now the deadline is January 9th to get a deal done. But Annie Costable just reported today that the WNBA proposes cutting team housing and an earlier start to the season. The league is proposing a 7-figure base maximum salary, but it's coming at a cost. Now, I'll go over really quick the latest monetary offer that the league proposed to the players, and I talked about this in yesterday's episode in a voiceover.
This isn't just a poor negotiation tactic. It's a massive gamble that could completely shatter the trust between the players and the league office, exposing a leadership that is stunningly out of touch with its own athletes. Honestly, this single tone-deaf proposal could be the final nail in the coffin for the current administration, proving their priorities are wildly misaligned with basic player welfare. And the craziest part is that this confusing move comes at the exact same moment the league is pitching huge 7-figure base salaries that, on the surface, look like a monumental win for the players. We're talking about a projected base salary of around $1 million, with the possibility of players reaching up to $1.2 million when revenue sharing is included, and multiple athletes per team could hit that mark by 2026. This should be a moment of pure celebration, a sign that the league is finally valuing its athletes at the level they've earned, but instead it feels like a classic Trojan horse. Once you read the fine print and see they're stripping away essential support systems at the same time, it's impossible not to question whether these massive salaries are just a smokescreen. A flashy distraction meant to cover cost-cutting moves that will ultimately make players' lives harder.
Really stood out to me because just last season, the max salary in the WNBA was around $220,000. Now that is going to be the minimum salary that a player can receive playing in the WNBA. So you can see the huge leap that the WNBA is offering when it comes to purely how much the players would make off of their salaries. Now, the biggest sticking point for the players has been the revenue sharing.
The so-called generosity feels completely insincere when it's paired with such a backward, short-sighted policy. And beyond the max salaries, the situation gets even more complicated because the average player salary is now projected to climb above $500,000, with the minimum salary jumping past $225,000. Let's put that into perspective for a moment. Just last season, the absolute maximum supermax salary in the WNBA was roughly $249,000. So yes, the league is undeniably presenting a massive leap in financial compensation for its athletes.
Those targets, they will get this revenue, and the salary cap will continue to increase as seasons go by. Now for the kicker, the brand new nugget of information that we found out just today, and that is that the league has removed team housing from proposals submitted to the WNBPA. Teams have been required to provide players with in-season housing since 2016, and this is something very similar to what they do in the G League. So for G League players, they're provided housing. The G League players don't make nearly as much as NBA players do, and obviously it's a developmental league. Some G League players get pulled up to the NBA, some go back and forth between the NBA.
But the optics of pairing such a historic pay raise with the removal of a basic necessity like guaranteed housing create an immediate and unavoidable conflict. It completely overshadows any goodwill that might have come from the paychecks and instead throws a glaring spotlight on the league leadership's profound misunderstanding of player needs and fan expectations, The league also claims it's finally addressing one of the players' longest-standing complaints: revenue sharing. For years, the system was designed so that players would only receive a share of the revenue if the league hit certain, often unrealistic, financial targets, a structure players rightly felt was unfair, especially when unforeseen events like a global pandemic could throw everything off course. The new proposal supposedly fixes this, promising that the salary cap will grow in step with league and team revenue, without those targets acting as a barrier, which on paper sounds like a major step forward.
Should be making real money. Of course they're not going to be paying for housing. I'm sorry, it makes sense to me. And I know a lot of the WNBA fans online are like, how dare you take away the housing? How dare you take away the housing? Well, if these players are making over $1 million, they should be taking away the housing. That's an added cost for the league. And hopefully it gets to the point where everybody is making significant amounts of money and they can pay for their housing. Now, people were bringing up, what about the players who are coming in on hardship contracts? What about the players who, are in and out or on 10 days or whatever, like not those players who are obviously fundamental pieces to different teams. And I do think like there's no way that the
W1. But here's the problem. This genuinely positive development is completely overshadowed by everything else. It feels less like a meaningful compromise and more like a desperate sleight of hand, an attempt to distract from the deeply unpopular and poorly planned proposals that threaten to derail the entire negotiation. The core issue, the one that has sent shockwaves through both players and fans, is the complete removal of team-provided housing from the proposed CBA. Think about that. Since 2016, it has been a league requirement for teams to provide in-season housing, a standard practice even in developmental leagues like the G League.
That is expected to interfere with the NCAA tournament and potentially other leagues such as Project B. The start date for the training camp could be as early as mid-March, sources indicated. The current 44-game regular season runs from mid-May to early September. The 2025 WNBA Finals ended on October 10th. I'm laughing because it's just crazy to see how short the season actually is when they put it like that. Mid-May to September, so May, June, July, August, September. It's not even a full 5 months for the teams that don't make it into the playoffs. For the teams that make it into the finals, it's 6 months of basketball. That's a very short season.
5. While the WNBA did offer a monthly stipend, ranging from about $1,000 to over $2,600 depending on the city, for players who wanted to secure their own housing, the decision to eliminate this benefit entirely is seen as a colossal and baffling step backward. This move highlights a tone-deaf approach from the league office, exposing leadership that appears completely disconnected from the daily realities of its athletes, especially those just starting out or earning on the lower end of the new salary scale.
Back to my point of we want to see the WNBA become a major sports league and be highly regarded and highly respected and have this be their full-time job. Like I feel like everybody's goal, if they get the right people in place in leadership in the WNBA, because it's kind of a mess from top down, but everybody's goal should be like this should be their full-time job. The players shouldn't have to play in off-season leagues to make more money. They shouldn't want to play in off-season leagues to make more money. They should want to take those 3-4 months when we're talking about other leagues like the NFL, the NBA, the NHL. They would want that off season to rest their bodies, to rejuvenate. But
when you compare this move to the G League, the WNBA's priorities become even more puzzling. G League players, who earn far less than their NBA counterparts, still receive either housing or a stipend to cover it. For the WNBA, a league actively trying to position itself as a top-tier professional organization, to eliminate such a fundamental and supportive benefit is simply mind-boggling. The league argues that players will now earn enough to cover their own housing, but this completely ignores the practical value and security that team-provided housing offers. This is especially crucial for rookies new to a city or for players without established networks to rely on.
The success that you have, now they're in a super sticky spot. Now they're in a spot where there's players in the WNBPA who are signed to rival leagues, who own rival leagues.
This is a classic short-sighted cost-cutting move that does nothing but alienate the league's most essential assets, the players, and severely damages its reputation as a supportive employer. The blatant disregard for lower-tier players is arguably the most infuriating and outrageous aspect of this entire housing debacle. It's almost inconceivable that the league would propose a plan that provides no housing for players on short-term or hardship contracts. We're talking about potentially leaving athletes completely stranded, forced to scramble for a place to live in a new city at a moment's notice.
Cut into unrivaled season. Do you think NECA's going to be happy that the WNBA is going to try to get them back into training camp in March, and she will just be coming off of Project B, where they're also making millions of dollars in Project B? I honestly don't even have a suggestion at this point, but I will say I have been one of the people since the beginning of time who has said there's no way.
But the baffling decisions don't end with housing. The WNBA has also proposed lengthening the season, which includes a much earlier start date that would inevitably overlap with the NCAA tournament. Under this plan, training camps could begin as early as mid-March, a dramatic shift from the current mid-May schedule. While a longer season might seem beneficial for revenue and fan engagement, the proposed timing is a logistical nightmare, especially for a league that relies heavily on the yearly influx of top-tier collegiate talent.
$1 million with potential earnings from revenue sharing, increasing that number to $1.2 million, and multiple players per team can be up for that Supermax contract.
This controversial decision comes even as the league proposes a seven-figure base maximum salary, which on the surface appears to be a huge win for player pay.
Salaries. Now, the biggest sticking point for the players has been the revenue sharing, but the salary cap is currently at $1.5 million per team, and this would increase to $5 million. And under the league's most recent proposal, the salary cap would grow with the league and team revenue regardless of
9.
This isn't just a simple administrative oversight. It's a catastrophic failure of leadership to protect the league's most vulnerable employees. A blind spot this large in CBA negotiations makes the league's decision-making seem not only foolish, but actively harmful to player welfare and talent recruitment, particularly for athletes who aren't yet in line to earn the proposed million-dollar salaries. This decision once again highlights a stunning lack of strategic foresight. It creates immediate, unavoidable conflicts for incoming rookies and completely disrupts the established rhythm of women's basketball without offering any viable solutions. The current 44-game regular season already features a tight schedule from mid-May to early September, and players have raised concerns about back-to-back games leading to injuries. Extending the season without addressing these existing welfare issues isn't just counterproductive, it's reckless. That proposed earlier start date would also directly clash with rival leagues like Project B and Unrivaled, where many WNBA stars earn significant off-season income. Forcing players to choose between these lucrative opportunities and WNBA training camp puts them in an impossible and unfair position. This isn't just a scheduling conflict. It's a strategic attack on player autonomy and their ability to maximize financial stability outside the league. The WNBA's leadership is effectively demanding that star players abandon other major income streams without providing fully guaranteed, year-round living support. This decision could backfire spectacularly, alienating the very talent the league depends on. Many players already spend off-seasons overseas in Europe, Turkey, France, Germany, and other countries, going straight from WNBA finals to international seasons and back again. An earlier start date compresses these grueling schedules even further, leaving players virtually no off-season to rest, recover, and rejuvenate. Trying to make the WNBA a player's sole full-time job without a comprehensive plan for rest or a globally integrated calendar demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of women's professional basketball. The draft itself becomes another logistical headache. Currently, it occurs just after the NCAA Final Four, giving rookies a few weeks to prepare before training camp. If the season starts in March, the draft would either overlap with the NCAA season or force drafted players to sit out an entire year. Neither option makes sense, highlighting a leadership team unprepared for the cascading effects of their decisions. This chaotic situation reflects years of treating the WNBA as an afterthought, not only by its own leadership but also by the NBA, which still owns half the league. Failing to prioritize long-term strategic planning inevitably results in reactive, poorly thought-out changes. One of the most critical missteps is the league's attempt to cut into rival leagues where WNBA stars are not just players, but owners and co-founders. Do they really expect stars like Nafi Sakir, Brianna Stewart, or Nneka Agamike to sacrifice their business ventures for an earlier training camp? Leagues like Project B and Unrivaled provide millions in income and equity, and this proposal directly threatens that. This isn't just a scheduling problem. It's a challenge to financial independence and the entrepreneurial spirit of top athletes. Such a confrontational approach is short-sighted and risks either a mass exodus of talent or deep, lasting discontent. Professional sports operate on a clear principle. Owners don't pay millions just to risk career-ending injuries elsewhere. NBA contracts, for instance, forbid extreme sports participation for this reason. The WNBA is attempting to exert that same control indirectly through an extended season, forcing players out of rival leagues without explicit contract restrictions. This passive-aggressive tactic is dangerous, antagonizing the very stars needed to grow the league while ignoring the realities of competition. Peeling back the layers, these decisions seem motivated by a desperate attempt to consolidate power and suppress competition, all while disguising the moves as player benefits. Extending the season and creating scheduling conflicts is intended to make off-season league participation impossible, forcing exclusive commitment without transparency. This heavy-handed approach threatens player well-being, undermines trust, and compromises the league's integrity. Attempting to control every aspect of a player's career without open discussion is destined to create deep, lasting resentment and erode progress in player-league relations. The negotiation process feels less like collaboration and more like a high-stakes power play. Breadcrumbing details and leaking proposals to sway public opinion erodes trust and obscures the league's true intentions. Leadership seems more focused on winning a PR battle than finding solutions that benefit both the league and its players, reinforcing the perception that these are ill-conceived decisions made in bad faith. The WNBA stands at a historic juncture with unprecedented popularity and growth potential, yet these CBA negotiations, marked by the baffling removal of player housing and a poorly planned season extension, reveal a leadership team ill-equipped for this moment. These decisions endanger the league, alienate players, frustrate fans, and risk squandering hard-earned momentum. Without a major course correction and a player-centric, forward-thinking approach, the league's leadership is jeopardizing its own future. They are proving that millions of dollars cannot compensate for a fundamental lack of foresight and empathy. Ultimately, these negotiations expose a leadership struggling to adapt to the league's burgeoning success. Clinging to outdated thinking while imposing aggressive, poorly planned changes, the leadership's short-sighted cuts to essential player benefits and chaotic handling of the season extension are not minor missteps. They are fundamental strategic failures that question the competence of those at the helm. If the WNBA wants to elevate itself, it needs leaders capable of making smart, sustainable decisions that prioritize long-term growth and the well-being of its players, not leaders whose choices leave everyone shaking their heads and doubting their fitness to lead.